So right now you see what's happening. So Russiagate, as predicted, is being proven to be the biggest propaganda push since WMDs. And you remember how WMDs was widely reported, and if you were skeptical of it, you got fired. MSNBC fired Phil Donahue for being skeptical about the propaganda that we should go to war in Iraq because they posed a threat because they had WMDs. So now we're doing Venezuela. So I just want to remind everybody, this is actually a quote. This is not a made-up quote. This is an actual quote. Well, we'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. And that was by the CIA director, William Casey, said that in the year 1981. So I showed these guys will often say this stuff out in. I showed you the former director, or is it a deputy director of the FBI, admitted on Fox News that it was part of the FBI's. What do you call it? They were charged with part of their mission. Part of the FBI's mission was to undermine progressive politicians. And they do all kinds of stuff, plant false stories, smear them, do anything they can to keep progressive politicians, and they call them Democrats, out of public office. That's the guy admitted it. I'm not making that up. And so it's happening right now in front of your eyes. What happened with Iraq. It happened with Libya. It happened with Syria. Nobody even talks about Libya on the news. That's the thing. They don't ever cover it. And when we cover it, YouTube demonetizes it. So we've covered it. We've covered what's really happening in Libya, and we've showed you what's really happening in Libya. And we've showed you that CNN lies about what's really happening. Lie. And so does the Washington Post, and so does the New York Times, and so does MSNBC. And if they don't lie about something like that, they just don't let the reporters cover it. Like they don't let them report on Yemen. And if they do, they have to report it a certain way. So you're living, now we're doing it in Venezuela. You'll see every newscast and every news is wrong, is repeating CIA disinformation. That's what they're doing at MSNBC, at CNN, and the Washington Post, and the New York Times. They're all repeating disinformation about Venezuela. You want to see a great videotape I got? Guess who does report on it? Ironically, RT reports on this kind of stuff. Here's a great videotape. This is, they give you these, the State Department gives these briefings. And they're upset that some news agencies are referring to Guaido not as the legitimate president of Venezuela. You think I'm kidding? Watch this.
We have noticed in news coverage that some outlets are incorrectly referring to Juan Guaido as the opposition leader or the self-proclaimed president. Neither is correct, relying on Venezuela's.
So this is the State Department, and this isn't Trump. I mean, this is Trump, but this isn't new to Trump. This isn't new to the State Department under Trump, is what I mean. And there's the State Department, proven liars. The State Department, the biggest purveyor of fake news in the world, State Department, the U.S. government. They always have been. They always will be. Keep that in mind. And then the newspapers are just the repeaters of false news. So they're scolding the press for reporting accurately that Juan Guaido is referred to as the opposition leader. He's not the legitimate president. He is the legitimate president. When was that election? As Greg Palast pointed out, what day was that election on? Okay.
And just a reminder, when they did hold elections, the party that's against Maduro, they boycotted the election.
Because they knew they wouldn't win. Why would you boycott an election you knew you could win? And if you thought they were going to throw the election, why wouldn't you participate in the election and then invite the UN in to monitor it? They didn't do that. In fact, they told the UN to stay away. Why? Because they knew they wouldn't win. But that'll never be reported. That's never going to be reported here. It won't be reported even at most of the places who consider themselves left on the YouTube won't report it correctly. Go ahead, Steph.
Well, Mr. Dore, I just want to know, do you recall who is Juan Guaido's cousin?
So we, I would love to we got to do a segment on that, but I'll tell you really briefly. So when I got invited to the Oslo Freedom Forum, we went there, and of course we figured it out. It was a big scam. It's called the Human Rights Association, HRA, I think is what it is. And it's run by Gary Kasparov and this guy, Thor Halvorson. And I did a little research, and it turns out they're just shills. They're neocon shills. They're not shills. They're neocon con men who use human rights, just like how we wanted to bring aid. We're going to bring aid to Venezuela. Of course, everybody knows what that means. Hey, we want to bring arms so we can have a civil war inside your country. We want to arm the opposition. That's what aid is, right? So that's what the Thor Halvorson does at Freedom Forum, the Oslo Freedom Forum, humanrightsfoundation.org, scam organization. And it took me 5 seconds to sniff it out. Again, I'm not smarter than anybody, certainly. And I don't have training as a investigative journalist, but what I do have is a bullshit detector. And I could tell those guys were bullshitters from the moment we got there. And so now Thor Halvorson, that guy who runs that Oslo Freedom Forum, who is pushing regime change wars all around the world at the behest of neocon con men, he is now also the cousin of Juan Guaido. So that guy I bumped into and exposed in Oslo is also cousins to Juan Guaido. So these are neocon. Oh, there it is. So go ahead, bring it up. So there you go. So that's Thor Halvorson, and that's Gary Kasparov, and they're ardent Putin haters, right? So
How do you mean that, Jimmy?
So Gary Kasparov screamed at me, "Who is Putin? You are Putin's body." That's what he said to me when I was asking him about human rights violations from the United States. Go watch that video. It's amazing. So those guys are scammers. Venezuela is a scammer, and the State Department are liars, and now they're trying to control the media. Here we go.
Constitution. Juan Guaido became interim president of Venezuela on January 23rd. Millions of Americans and more than 50 countries recognize Juan Guaido as interim president of Venezuela.
Let me get this straight. You're complaining because news outlets are calling him by a title that you don't think that he...
Not a complaint, pointing out, just trying to correct.
Well, it sounds like a complaint to me, and it seems pretty weak.
He's
God.
He's the interim president, and we don't want to...
You consider him to be the interim president, and as you say, 50 other countries outside of recognize him as the interim president. But there are more than 190 members of the United Nations. So your 50 countries is not even close to half.
It's the time to act in support of democracy. And
news coverage of
can you imagine being a grown-up and being made to look like this big of an asshole in public and not be able to go out? Can we stop talking? I can't. Can I just please stop talking? Boy, I hope I'm never in a position like that sometime. He has to come out and push a lie. That's what a guy's face looks like when he has to push a lie and he just got called out on it.
is not even close to half.
It's the time to act in support of democracy. And
news coverage of calling him the legitimate leader, the president is going to encourage more countries to recognize.
We don't want to feed into the rhetoric of the current dictator.
Okay.
In a similar vein,
So that's your government. That's your lying government. And the news people at CNN and MSNBC would have you believe that the government's telling you the truth about Venezuela. CNN is that they're lying just like those guys. Isn't that something? Isn't that awesome? I don't know who that guy who pushed back was, but he obviously can't be an American reporter. I wonder if he is. That would be interesting to find out who that guy was. But yeah, you know, I'll often these State Department briefings are often hilarious like that. The people who cover the State Department seem to be a lot more cantankerous than anybody else. So there you go. And by the way, so that's
Can I see it again?
Let's watch it again.
We have noticed in news coverage that some outlets are incorrectly referring to Juan Guaido as the opposition leader or the self-proclaimed president. Neither is correct. Relying on Venezuela's constitution, Juan Guaido became interim president of Venezuela on January 23rd. Millions of Americans and more than 50 countries recognize Juan Guaido as interim president of Venezuela.
Let me get this straight. You're complaining because news outlets are calling him by a title that you don't think that he...
Not a complaint, pointing out, just trying to correct.
Well, it sounds like a complaint to me, and that seems pretty weak.
He's the interim president, and we don't want to...
You consider him to be the interim president, and as you say, 50 other countries outside of recognize him as the interim president. But there are more than 190 members of the United Nations. So your 50 countries is not even close to half.
It's the time to act in support of democracy. And
the news coverage of calling him the legitimate leader, the president, is going to encourage more countries to recognize.
We don't want to feed into the rhetoric of the current dictator.
Okay.
In a similar vein, U.S. Senator...
There you go. So there's your government lying. There's your government producing fake news, right? Your government. I thought it was Russia. We had to worry about Russia. That's your own government. And then guess who repeats their words? CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, New York Times.
Somebody says that's Matt Lee, the AP veteran reporter.
Oh, is
I think
it?
asking the question.
Yes, that is correct.
That is correct. That is Matt Lee, the AP veteran reporter.
Thank you, everybody on the chat, for pointing that out.
Isn't it amazing? Wasn't it nice how the thing I love about this, that's nice work by Matt. What's his Matt Lee from the AP? Is that his name? Mm-hmm. Nice work, Matt. That's some good journalism there, pushing back against that dillweed. And you know what I love about it is that this clip got passed around. You can't turn on cable news without seeing that clip. Oh, except nobody ever. The only place that picked it up was RT, and then here. Anybody else play this bullshit? It's just funny. So that's the thing. So good work. Good kudos to him.
Jimmy, you should know that Martin Abarrio, he now recognizes you as president of the United States.
Thank you, Martin. We're announcing our dates for 2019. We're going to Ventura Comedy Club, March 31st, Tempe, Arizona, Austin, Texas, Portland, Chicago, and lots more. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a list of all our dates and live shows. And please become a patron. We give you hours of bonus material. And please make sure you're subscribed. Even if you think you're subscribed, they unsubscribe people every day, and you might be one of them. Check to make sure you're subscribed, and then you have to click the bell twice so they send you a notification when we drop a video. Thanks for your support.